is News Conference Extra with Conan Nolan.
Good morning and welcome to News Conference Extra, a special segment of Today in LA Weekend. Joining us from Washington, Kristen Welker, host of Meet the Press, which airs every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. So, Kristen, a lot to talk about. But first, I'm not sure this received enough attention. It did to a certain degree, but Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's speech on the floor of the U.S. Senate on Thursday was remarkable on a number of levels. It was a highly critical speech of the Israeli government publicly. We had never seen that before, frankly. Not from Senator Schumer, who himself is Jewish, but from a leading Democrat. And it seemed to where he talked about the importance of a new election, getting rid of Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. This at a time when Israel is at war in Gaza. It was apparently met with shockwaves in Tel Aviv. What was the reaction in Washington? And is this a departure for the Democratic Party, which has seen an upheaval from younger voters who are very much opposed to the amount of aid the United States send to Israel? They're demanding an immediate ceasefire.
It is. I think that it took a lot of people by surprise on both sides of the aisle. Notably, President Biden was just asked about this. He called it a good speech. What the speech did politically for President Biden is it gave him a little bit of space to get tougher on Prime Minister Netanyahu. But look, there was a sharp backlash. You had the Speaker of the House saying effectively it was unconscionable, Leader Mitch McConnell, that Chuck Schumer would call for a change in leadership in Israel of another country's leader, saying that we don't like it when other countries meddle in the United States elections, and that is what that amounted to. So there was some pretty tough language, and as you can imagine, a big backlash in Israel as well. But Leader Schumer's message and argument is that the death toll, the humanitarian crisis is mounting in Gaza, and that not enough is being done to help, and that Prime Minister Netanyahu, consistently opposing a two-state solution, has only stood in the way of broader progress. Now, taking a step back, as we are having this conversation, negotiators are meeting, are trying to reach a deal to get a temporary ceasefire several weeks in exchange for a release of the remaining hostages. They've been holding these talks for months. There have been stops and starts. So we'll have to see if any progress is made this time around. We also know that Israel is preparing for its all-out ground invasion inside Rafah, something that President Biden has called a red line. So this war, this situation is reaching a boiling point, and politically speaking, it has been a drag on President Biden. There's no doubt about that. And these comments really at the center of this latest phase as the United States tries to apply pressure to Israel to do more to protect civilian lives. Conan.
So do you believe the Biden campaign is looking at the numbers here, and there is a divide, and the divide is generational on the Democratic side. Older and normally Chuck Schumer being one of them, older Democrats have been strong supporters of Israel. Younger, certainly more progressive Democrats, they're the ones who are in the streets blocking traffic with some of these pro-Palestinian demonstrations, and it's part of the equation going into the election in 2024. If the president loses that support, they may not go to Donald Trump, but they may just, stay at home. That could be a decisive factor in his effort at re-election.
That's the concern, that these voters are going to stay at home. And of course, we've seen in a number of these primary races, these voters, whether it be Michigan, Missouri, voting uncommitted, a protest vote against President Biden. And as you know, in all of these battleground states, it's going to be close, Conan. So that is the top concern among Democrats. Now, I will tell you that privately, a lot of Democrats also say that on Election Day, they think that these voters will turn out and vote. We will have to see how it all shakes out. But there's no doubt that there has been a lot of outreach in an attempt to try to bring these voters back into the fold, to energize them, to get them back on the side of President Biden.
And finally, the TikTok ban. Proponents say, listen, it's not a ban. It's requiring ByteDance, which is the Chinese-based company, to divest TikTok because they know the relationship of the Chinese intelligence community and businesses in China. However, it's now up to the Senate And again, speaking of Chuck Schumer, he hasn't even told us if he's going to bring it up to a floor vote. Why are senators so concerned or so sensitive to this issue when the House voted overwhelmingly by bipartisan numbers to pass it?
It's a great question, Conan. I've been talking to a lot of folks on Capitol Hill, and they say it faces this uncertain future in the Senate because here's the crux of the concern for a number of folks in the Senate. Let's say you do sell TikTok. Let's say ByteDance divests. Who's going to buy it? Can you be sure that the person or entity who purchases TikTok in the future, if that is the ultimate resolution to this, protects national security? Because that's really what's at the root of this, concerns about the United States national security. So I anticipate if this does get a vote in the Senate, that this legislation looks a lot different. Maybe it has some amendments to it. We'll have to see. The politics of this are just so thorny as well. President Biden has said that, yes, he would sign a ban on TikTok, sign that legislation that just passed in the House. But notably, former President Trump, who used to support a ban on TikTok, now opposes it. A lot of advisors are telling him the politics of this are not good. You shouldn't support a ban. So we'll have to see how the politics play out. Right now, though, the policy still very uncertain. Conan.
So who's on the program Sunday?
We're going to be talking to Senator Ben Cardin. He is the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. We'll talk to him about TikTok. We're also going to talk to Senator Bill Cassidy about all of this as well, Israel, Ukraine. And I have a Meet the Moment, a very special conversation with Chef Jose Andres. He has a new cookbook out. He is also leading some of the humanitarian efforts to get food and aid into Gaza. So it's a revealing conversation. I'm looking forward to bringing it to people on Sunday. Conan.
If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Kristen Welker, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much.
Following Meet the Press Sunday morning, I'll have an interview with an individual who caught everybody by surprise in the race for LA City Council District 14, the campaign to unseat incumbent Kevin De Leon. We'll meet the woman who was a novice to politics up until now. Her name is Isabel Jurado. Plus, the effort to put on the ballot this fall a campaign called the Taxpayers Protection Act, which would require a vote of the people, statewide or locally, before taxes are increased. That's News Conference at 9 following Meet the Press. We'll see you then.